Jai Shri Ram. Now we come to Canto 41. The ladies of the royal gynecium bewail the exile of Sri Ram, and others and the citizens of Ayodhya too are reduced to a miserable plight. Even as Sri Ram, that tiger among men, was driving out of Ayodhya with folded hands, a loud plaintive cry actually burst forth from the mouths of the ladies in the gynecium. They exclaimed, "Oh, where goes that lord who was the refuge and protector of us helpless, weak, and forlorn people? Oh, where goes the prince to whom joy and sorrow made no difference, nay, who did not lose temper, even when slandered, avoided provoking words, and pacified all who were angry? Where goes the high souled Sri Ram, who is endowed with exceptional glory and who behaved with us in the same way as he did with his own mother Kaushalya? Oh, where goes Sri Ram, the protector not only of us all but even of the world, enjoined to proceed to the forest by the king who was being tormented by Kaikeyi? How insensible is the king who has sent into exile to the forest the virtuous Prince Ram, who is the support of the entire living creation and is vowed to truthfulness. Stricken with agony, all the aforesaid queens lamented in this way and cried at the top of their voices, like so many cows bereft of their calf. Hearing that frightful plaintive cry in the gynecium, King Dashrath, who was already tormented with grief caused by separation from his son, felt sore distressed. No oblations were poured into the sacred fire by those maintaining the sacred fire. No householders cooked food, people did not carry on their business, and the sun went out of sight even before sunset due to untimely clouds. Elephants dropped grass, etc., from their mouths. Cows refused to give suck to their calves. Mothers did not rejoice to meet their firstborn son. Getting conjoined through a retrograde movement with the moon, Trishanku and Mars, even Jupiter and Mercury, and all other luminaries assumed a stern aspect. The lunar mansions lost their brilliance and the planets their splendor. Proceeding on a wrong course, they cast a hazy lustre in the heavens. Driven by a blast of wind, a mass of clouds rose in the sky like a turbulent ocean. Nay, Sri Ram, having departed for the forest, the city of Ayodhya rocked to and fro. All the four quarters became obscure as though enveloped in darkness. No planet nor any lunar mansion emitted the faintest light. All of a sudden, all the people of Ayodhya were reduced to a wretched plight. None could give his or her mind to food or recreation. Tormented with recurrence of grief and sighing heavily all the time, all the people of Ayodhya cursed the emperor. Men walking on the public road had their face soiled with tears. None was found merry. All were plunged in grief. No cool breeze blew, nor the moon present a placid appearance, nor again did the sun warm the people with its rays. The whole world was disturbed in mind. Sons were indifferent to their mothers, husbands were of no use to their wives, and brothers had no use for their brothers. Abandoning everything else, all focused their thought on Sri Ram alone. All those, however, who were friends of Sri Ram were perplexed in mind and had no sleep, overwhelmed as they were with excess of grief. Agitated through fear and grief, the city of Ayodhya, bereft of Sri Ram, the high-souled prince, was thereupon violently disturbed, even as the earth, along with its mountains, rocks to and fro when bereft of Indra, the destroyer of strongholds, and cried with its elephants, warriors, and horses. Thus ends Canto 41 in the Ayodhya Kand of the glorious Ramayana of Valmiki, the work of a rishi and the oldest epic. Now we come to Canto 42 in Ayodhya Kand. What is there in the chapter? Sri Ram, having departed for the forest in an exceptionally swift going chariot, Dashrath vainly seeks to cover the intervening distance on foot. The very dust raised by the chariot having disappeared after a while. The emperor feels doubly disconsolate and drops to the ground. When Kaikeyi comes forward to support him, he scolds her and asks her not to touch his person. Kaushalya then lifts him up and persuades him to return. His personal attendants take him to the latter's apartment, and seeing him plunged in grief, Kaushalya seats herself beside him and begins to lament in various ways. Now, let's start. So long, however, as the clouds of the dust that followed Sri Ram even as he was going out to the forest could be seen, Dashrath, the foremost of Ikshvakus, did not turn his eyes away from them. So long as the king saw his beloved and most virtuous son in the form of the dust raised by his chariot, his body stood on the ground, growing in size as it were to be able to catch a glimpse of his gradually receding son. The moment, however, the king ceased to behold even the dust of the chariot of the said Sri Ram, he dropped to the ground, afflicted and dejected. His seniormost wife, Kaushalya, approached his right arm in order to lift him up by that arm, while the notorious Kaikeyi of charming limbs went up to his other left side. Distressed in mind to behold Kaikeyi, the king, who was richly endowed with prudence as well as with piety and culture, spoke to her as follows: O Kaikeyi, of sinful resolve, pray do not touch my limbs. Really, I do not wish to see you. You are neither my wedded wife nor my relation. Nay, I am no longer the master of those who depend for their subsistence on you, nor are they my servants anymore. I disown you. You are solely devoted to your selfish ends and have forsaken virtue. I hereby disclaim all the benefits that will accrue me to hereafter in this world and the next from the fact that I clasped your hand in marriage and took you round the fire with me. If Bharat gets delighted to receive this sovereignty free from hindrance, let not that which he offers to me after my death by way of obsequial oblations intended for his departed ancestors reach me in the other world. Forthwith, lifting up the king, who was soiled with dust due to his having toppled down, Queen Kaushalya, who had been emaciated through grief, then returned to the palace with the king. Thinking deeply of his son Sri Ram, a scion of Raghu, Dashrath gave way to repentance for having sent him into exile under pressure from Kaikeyi, even as one is stung with remorse on having voluntarily killed a Brahman or on touching a blazing fire with one's own hand. The appearance of the king, who turned back again and again, exerted himself to gaze on the path which the chariot of Sri Ram had taken, did not look charming any more than the orb of the sun in eclipse. Thinking all the time of his beloved son Sri Ram, he lamented, stricken with agony as he was. Coming to know of his son having reached the outskirts of the city, he then spoke as follows: The marks of the hoofs of the excellent horses drawing the chariot of my celebrated son are no doubt seen on the road, but that high-souled prince is no longer seen. That jewel among my sons, who having been smeared all over with sandal paste, used to repose comfortably on cushions and pillows while being fanned by women possessed of great comeliness and adorned with costly jewels, will surely lie down today at some unknown place at the foot of a tree, resting his head on a block of wood or stone. Nay, at the close of night he will rise from the bare ground in a wretched condition, enveloped in dust, and exhaling audibly like a leader of elephants rising from beside a spring. Undoubtedly, people living in the forest will behold Ram, the protector of the world, who is possessed of long arms, rising from sleep in the forest and going forth like one forlorn. That beloved daughter of Janak, who is ever worthy of all kind of amenities, will surely walk today to the forest barefooted and therefore injured by treading on thorns. Unacquainted as she is with the woods, she will doubtless be struck with fear to hear the deep and thrilling roar of beasts of prey. Having your wishes fulfilled, O Kaikeyi, Enjoy the kingdom as a widow. I am unable to live without that tiger among men. Lamenting as aforesaid, and surrounded on all sides by a multitude of men, the king entered his excellent abode, which was full of sorrow, like one who had weighed on the death of a relation. Perceiving the entire city of Ayodhya with its cross roads and portals deserted, and the sheds in front of shops where merchandise was spread closed, its people depressed in spirits, feeble and afflicted, and its highways not very crowded, the king entered his palace wailing and thinking all the time of Sri Ram alone, even as the sun enters a cloud. Bereft of Sri Ram, Sita, and Lakshman, the palace looked like a big pool rendered imperturbable due to its snakes having been carried away by Garuda. The lamenting emperor then spoke to the porters in faltering, soft, pitiful, and indistinct words, which were also not clearly intelligible, as follows: Take me speedily to the apartments of Kaushalya, the mother of Ram, for nowhere else will my heart find solace. The porters took the king, who was speaking as aforesaid, to the apartments of Kaushalya, and there he was gently laid by them on a couch. The mind of the king, even though he had entered Kaushalya's apartment and had been laid on a couch, continued to be restless. The king found the palace, which was bereft of his two sons and destitute of his daughter in law, devoid of charm as the sky without the moon and the stars. Looking at the palace and lifting up his arm, the powerful emperor cried in a loud voice, O Ram, are you really deserting us both, your mother as well as myself? Alas, those jewels among men alone who will survive the term of Ram's exile and are eventually able to see him come back, clasping him to their bosom, will be really happy. Now, when the night arrived, the night which was, as it were, the night of dissolution for him, King Dashrath spoke at midnight to Kaushalya as follows: Kaushalya, I am unable to see you. Please touch me with your hand well. Having followed Ram, my sight has not yet returned. Perceiving the aforesaid monarch on the couch, who was thinking deeply all the time of Sri Ram alone, and breathing hard with difficulty, and sitting by his side, the Queen Kaushalya, who wore a distressed look about her, began to wail. Thus ends Canto 42 in the Ayodhya Kand of the glorious Ramayana of Valmiki, the work of a rishi and the oldest epic. Jai Shri Ram.